the box filter. It's old school. It's beloved by breeders. And I'm going to tell you why. It's the best filter to keep your aquarium clear. Hello everyone, this is Bentley. We're going to continue our series talking about the different styles of filtration, and now we're going to talk about what makes the humble box filter actually pretty amazing. Yeah. So here's the thing. We talked last week about some of the problems, right? In theory, why wouldn't you just use a sponge? Same methodology, bigger or less obtrusive, depending on how you look at it, because if you get the larger box filters, they get quite a lot larger than this. But here's the thing. Unlike the sponge filter, which every time you're going to pull this thing out of your tank, you're going to have a bunch of stuff drop out of it, right? Even with the most careful methods, using bags and doing that kind of stuff, you still will get some of the stuff coming out of this back into your aquarium. This, it's self-contained. You pull it out, everything stays in it. But that's not the big one, right? If it was, it's just maintenance, but that's still superior. Here's the thing. The biggest thing you need to know about this bad boy is that because the typical medium we put inside of these is filter floss, you get this kind of effect. You get super clear water because the particulate is all going to get collected inside this thing. And when you're going to maintenance it, you literally are just pulling it out, removing the filter floss, putting new filter floss in, dropping it back in. You're putting the finest filtration for mechanical filtration possible into this. And you can look at the comments of the last video. There's tons of them where like the biggest thing is this thing will give you that beautiful crystal clear water. If you want amazing water polishing, but you also want to run all of your tanks on air, this is the ticket. This is the best way to polish your water, because inside is going to be super, super fine filtration. You might be like, wow, it's going to plug up so fast. You buy a giant bag of filter floss at the craft store for like $5. It's cheap. This is, alongside underground filtration, probably the secret to getting the clearest possible water you can get with air-powered filtration. And the other next benefit, like, yeah, this is a little plastic thing, but you know what? You're going to find people that are like, back in 1972, I bought 25 of these things, I still got 10 on the shelf. They're invincible. Yeah, I'm serious. These, especially you get some of the old box filters or like the style that Gemco carries, they're really tough. They're really durable. So you'll get people that will buy extras thinking like, oh, just in case I break one, I got a spare, just throw it in there. And then they never have to replace it. They're running the same freaking filters for an eternity. That is one of the big benefits of these things, is despite the fact that they're relatively cheap, they're durable. Like, this one here is a small pen plax, right? And you can hear it. But even more, like, if I put pressure on this, the only thing I would ever be worried about is very heavy, and I'd have to really shove on this thing on top. Which means that in normal aquarium use, this thing's not getting broken. You'd have to drop it from a high height, throw the thing, intentionally try to break it to actually break these things. And considering that, like, this little Penplex unit here that I have as a demo unit, I'm going to do some testing eventually with these things, this was like $7. Even these kind of like hot rotted up versions here that have all the extra stuff in them, they're also only like $6, $7. Now granted, you might be like, well, I gotta buy filter floss so often, if I just buy the sponge once, it's only like $15, and blah, 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 blah. You get ease of maintenance and significantly better water quality with this little guy than you're ever going to get out of a sponge. If you can tell me that you can maintain a sponge filter in basically a minute, I'm probably going to call you on your bluff, because that's about how long it takes to get one of these clean. Seriously, it's pull it out of the tank, take the top off, pull the filter floss off, new ball of filter floss in, boom, done. Done. You can do this in a minute. It's like a NASCAR pit crew. We are talking just in, out, done. Whereas a sponge, you gotta sit there and squeeze it, get all the muck out of it. You don't need to do that with these things. They are fast, and that's one of the big benefits. That's why your old school breeders, and even, if you can think about it, back before the new fish warehouse Dan and Dan's Fish had, box filters. Old school. Because honestly, it's really, really effective when you're doing things in mass. Sponges can be too, so can under-gravel filtration. But for the cost, this is literally the cheapest filter on an air-driven that's going to give you incredible water clarity. So if you need to make sure that there's really nothing flying around and then the maintenance is also super fast, this is your go-to. Cheap and effective. But here's the best part. Unlike a lot of other things, and a lot of people in the comments keyed in on this, one of the reasons that this kind of lost some of its popularity is not because it wasn't effective, it's because manufacturing these things was not super profitable. They last so long that aquarists aren't buying them over and over and over again, like certain other methods of filtration kind of require us to do. So in the end, this is kind of like the old school heaters that are out there. You know that guy who's got that heater from 1982 that's like, yeah, I've still been using this thing, it's invincible, it'll never die. Right? That's what these are. This is that filter that you could have bought back in the 80s and would still be perfectly fine today. That is the major benefit to the box filter. Cheap, fast maintenance, effective, amazing water quality, and durable. They'll last you a long time. You can use one of these little bad boys for 10 or 20 years. And even the nicest sponge is probably not going to last you that long. Whether there's something that's going to, plants grow into it or something like that, eventually that sponge is going to degrade and you're going to need to replace it. Now granted, 10 years out of a sponge, pretty awesome, right? But this can just keep going and going and going. You can literally pass this thing down to your kids and it would still work fine. Because it's simple. It's 2 tubes, a box, and a grate. And yet, might be one of the best filtration methods ever created. I said it. You heard me. Now I know. Some of you are going to be like, Bentley, what's all this wishy-washy nonsense? You go back and forth. It's kind of the point of this whole series, isn't it? But seriously, I can't tell you the number of people, especially in comments, and I was smiling like ear to ear to see the number of people like, you're wrong, I've had these things for so long, and da-da-da. I was like, I know. Having a little fun with it. But seriously, like, these can last you a long time. And especially if you're doing lots of small tanks. Now, if you're doing a ton of 40 breeders, a small box filter like this might not be your jam. But you could go to somewhere like Gemco and get the bigger ones, and they're perfect. Right? It's what Dan from Dan's Fish was doing for a long time. But if you're doing lots of small tanks, then these little guys here, at like $6, $7 a piece, you go get a couple of big things of filter floss, you're not going to have to worry about your filters for months at a time, and then you're just going to be like, oh, getting low on filter floss, quick trip over to the craft store, buy a couple more bags. It's minimal. And because of that combination and how easy and water clarity and all these things that it does for you, you never have to worry about it. I don't know, you're going to be like, but Bentley, didn't you say something about bacterial colony and you're resetting the bacterial colony? Every surface in your tank eventually has beneficial bacteria on it. The primary goal here, realistically, is good mechanical filtration and aeration of your water. Now, the easiest combo to do is have a little bit of gravel. You don't need a lot. It can be simple, right? But that just gives you that texture, that porousness, that porosity to add more surface area for your beneficial bacteria. And if you're using plants, even better. You could use a bunch of simplified plants, and guess what? They're the ones doing most of the work. This is just there to play cleanup. And if you're using a central loop system, you're doing a big rack or multiple racks of lots of tanks, this will give you that beautiful, super clean water that can make your tanks have this kind of appeal. This thing is on an expensive canister filter with kind of all the bells and whistles. You could get a very similar level of water quality and water clarity for under $10. Know what I'm saying? This is that good. I mean it. But you know what the best part is? Almost every filtration method is good. It's all about how you use it. And that's why you've got the old guard, the old school breeders who beat me up in the comments last week. And I thank you, all of you, because it was kind of fun to read all your comments. But seriously, do not look the humble box filter in the face and go, that's old guy tech. There's all this better stuff. Try one of these things. They will surprise you at how effective they can be and some of the benefits over even some of our best and most powerful filtration methods. They're kind of impressive. That's it. That's our series for the box filter. I want to know in the comments down below. What do you think? You think I'm out of my mind? You're like, come on, Bentley, we can easily get better results out of XYZ. Or just like, it doesn't move enough water, I need a powered filter. I can't do it like I can with a sponge and hook a power head onto this very easily. Whatever it may be, I want to hear from you in the comments down below. I want to hear about your experience with box filters. Do you know some like old guy who bought a bunch of them back in the 70s and he's never had to change them ever? I need to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, give it a little like, and if you really want to help your fellow fish tuber out, consider subscribing or sharing it with some friends, because that's the easiest and free way that you can help crazy people on the internet like me be able to do more crazy nonsense like this. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.